Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky!
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Name the dog, Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in pints?
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with their ungeeky beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is my friend who loves a good geek. It's Frank. How are you today?
I'm just geeking out today, man. It is good to be with you. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Before we started recording, you reminded me oh so casually that I used to say ungeeky beer, and now I can't get it out of my head. So I thought I'd try it and see what happens.
Nice.
And I said it. I said the words.
Doesn't look like anything exploded or imploded. Looks like we're still here. So I guess that's a good thing.
It's true. Well, Frank, all that is old is new again. You know,
that is what they say. Yes, that is what I've been told.
If that's true or not, we'll never know. But anyway, you have a beer in your hand. Potentially it's geeky. Potentially it's ungeeky. Could you tell me about it?
You tell me what you think. I am enjoying a pineapple IPA, a Ring King pineapple IPA from Smuttlabs.
I like that can.
Yeah, right. It's neat. It's very cool. I like it very much. The beer itself is delicious. Yes, it is a really nice IPA. It's pretty hoppy. It's as far as IPAs go, it's pretty standard, but the pineapple flavor gives it a nice little sweetness. So it's still got the sort of the bitterness of the hops, but you've got this really sweet pineapple flavoring on top of it that is just delicious and really refreshing, and makes it a really nice summer drink, because it's nice and cold. It's got that sweetness, got a little bit of bitterness on the back end. Really nice. So I am really enjoying this one from Smutty Nose, Smuttlabs. Smuttlabs is sort of Smutty Nose's experimental beer lab, where they do more experimental flavors. And
are they run by Commodore Smuttlab?
Nice. So yeah, that's what I've got. What are you drinking today?
I'm drinking something new for me today. I have yet to open it. It is a Buffalo Czech Pilsner from the Shaidzon Beard Company. That's beer, not beard company. Shaidzon Beard Company, which is in West Kingston, Rhode Island, which is fairly close to my house because Rhode Island is a tiny
I was going to say, no matter where you were in the
you're
state,
close to my house. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, it can take, God forbid, almost an hour to get somewhere.
Oh my goodness!
Got beer on my arm.
Oh no!
But that's okay. Sometimes that's a good sign.
Yeah, it can be good luck,
right? It's like luck. Yeah, good luck. And we have a beer.
I think it's so funny whenever I talk to my friends who live, you and I both live in the Northeast of the U.S. Whenever I talk to friends who live either in the South or who live maybe out in the Northwest, I've got a few friends at both those locations, and they cannot really wrap their minds around the idea that it takes less than 8 hours to drive to the next state.
Sure.
I went to visit my family in New York this past weekend.
I can almost be in a different country in 8 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. I went to visit my family in New York this past weekend, and 6 hours we were there, and we passed through 3 different states to get there. Right. And for a lot of folks in a lot of parts of the world, that's just, you could drive 5-6 hours and go through 3 different states, 4 really. That's kind of a whole adjustment for a lot of folks. So it's just funny for me when we take for granted, when you talk about I could drive an hour, it could take me almost an hour to get across the state. It's so funny because for folks living in those parts of the country, I'm sure many of them are listening, are like, Geez, an hour and you're like that's it to get like across your state, like that's with a lot of traffic. Jeez.
Yeah, and I'm 5 minutes from the grocery store, and I'm 10 minutes from the one I actually shop at.
There you go.
Yeah, so yeah, I have cousins out west. They like grew up in Wyoming, but now they're in Colorado and Oregon and like all these different and Nevada. But it was the same thing growing up. They'd be like, yeah, okay, well, I'm going 3 hours to this thing, and I'll be back in another 3. And I have friends from Texas, and they used to say the same. Like they'd be like, yeah, I'm just driving up 3 hours to go to this city, and I'll drive back 3 hours. That's all in a day. And that's like almost unheard of around here.
Yeah. Like if I'm driving 3-4 hours, I'm spending the night wherever I'm going, most likely. Right. Like I'm not going to drive back in the same day. I mean, I will if I have to, but I'd really rather not.
Right. Because you figure that like, OK, so if I'm going to hang in that place for 4 or 5 hours, then my net time of like being in the car is larger than the time that I spent in my destination.
Right.
And that doesn't pan out. That doesn't pan out in New England the way that it would in other places. So whatever, we're spoiled. We have small states, but in some ways we have very little to offer because it's so scrunched.
It's true.
Like you want land? Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't help you.
It's going to come at a price.
Fine with a quarter acre, right? Because that'll be 500,000, please.
Yeah. That's basically what we're dealing with. It's like, sure, we've got some land, not much, but whatever we can give you is going to be small and overpriced.
Right. Well, it's the one thing they're not making any more of, Frank.
That's what I've been told.
Mm-hmm. Unless of course that land exists in a different planet.
Ooh. Like Middle Earth or like what are we talking?
Frank. Middle Earth is actually planet Earth. It's the same place.
It's like Middle English. It's just older.
It's just older. That's right. Exactly like that. No, Frank, I'm talking about the planet Eternia. Have you heard about it?
I'm not sure that was in the Jedi Archives, and if it's not in the Jedi Archives, I don't think it exists.
It does not exist. You are correct, Frank. We are here to talk about He-Man, the Masters of the Universe. More specifically, I need to hit you with my best shot.
Hit me with your best shot. Why don't you hit me with your best shot?
Masters of the Universe Revelation. This is very specific because this is the new He-Man Netflix show, a show run by Kevin Smith that has taken the internet by storm. Sometimes you may like storms, so sometimes the storm be against you. Do you know any of the controversy surrounding this show right now?
I don't, and I'm going to be very honest with you, and this is me turning in my geek card a little bit. But I know next to nothing about He-Man, She-Ra, Masters of the Universe. Like this was a blind spot for me as a kid because it was just a little before my time. And being a kid without cable, I wasn't watching reruns of it or anything on any cable channels. So it is an area. It's still a geek blind spot for me. So tell me about the controversy around this show, but tell me whatever you can tell me about Masters of the Universe.
But Frank, this is the best part. Me too.
Cool.
I did not grow up on He-Man at all. I've never seen a full episode of the original show ever.
Okay, so I would be starting from the same.
You're starting from the same
level
place.
playing
The
field.
fact that you knew that She-Ra and He-Man were connected is actually better than where I started.
Okay,
so that you're netting what like 0.1 right now.
Okay, cool.
To Frank. So before we go into Revelation, He-Man just is the background, but I mean this new show tells you everything you need to know in 10 seconds. And which is wonderful. So there's the planet Eternia, and on said planet there are basically two warring factions. One is like He-Man and his group, blah blah blah, and then there's Skeletor and his group, blah blah blah. You're familiar with Skeletor, at least, right? That's like
yes,
he's got a skull for face, purple hood, blah blah blah.
Yep,
right. So they have this. There's this thing called Castle Grayskull.
Yes,
Castle Grayskull is like where magic exists, right? The power of the universe. So that's where He-Man is the protector of Castle Grayskull. Skeletor constantly trying to get into Castle Grayskull because, he's got a theme going, right?
I am a skull. That castle has skull in its name. Ergo, give me the Skull Castle.
Give me the Skull Castle.
Right.
Exactly. So if you've seen,
and I'm going to rename it Castle Yellow Skull.
Yeah,
because my skull is kind of yellow.
It is. Yes, exactly. So He-Man, kind of like Shazam. Okay, so like Billy Batson, regular kid says Shazam turns into powerful Captain Marvel, Shazam, whatever you want to call him.
Sure.
Like that's He-Man. Same thing. He's really Prince Adam. And Prince is not his first name; it's a title. He's actually a prince. Blah blah blah.
Thanks for clarifying that.
You never know in these things, and so he is the protector of like magic in Eternia or whatever. So he's like, by the power of Grayskull, I have the power. He turns into He-Man. Only like 4 people know that Prince Adam is He-Man, and they defend stuff. All right, so that's it. That's
cool.
He-Man at its core. Everybody, Skeletor's always trying to get to Castle Grayskull. So it started as a toy line.
Sure.
That transformed into a television show.
Transformers is something else, but that was also a television show. Good try.
Also started as a toy line.
Yes.
That's good. If you have not seen it, I highly recommend the show The Toys That Made Us on Netflix.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So there's the Star Wars episode, the Star Trek, Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, Hello Kitty, Lego, He-Man, whatever else. But it goes through the history. What I loved about this general concept of He-Man before I sell you on the show is that if you like fantasy, we got you. If you like science fiction just as much or more, we're also here for you. Because it's this weird blend of a world where like it's like there's still serfdom for some reason, but like they also have hovercrafts and lasers and cannons, and it's like whatever your like 8-year-old brain can handle, we're doing it.
Sure.
So the show takes place immediately after the 80s television show.
Okay.
It's like set in the same world.
That's what I was wondering. Is this a reboot? Is this a continuation? So, all right. So we're continuing.
It's a continuation, but there's nothing about the old show that you need to know.
Cool.
Because it was an 80s show where nothing really happened. Skeletor tried to get the thing. It didn't happen. End of episode, moving on to next episode. And that's it. So it introduces you to everybody that like within the first 30 minutes. It was 5 episodes. They're 30 minutes apiece.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's part 1 to part 2, which is another 5 episodes that comes out in like 6 months, a year, whatever.
Okay.
So here's my selling point to you, because it's a little bit more magic than like is for you, I would say.
Okay.
But the show, this new one, Masters of the Universe Revelation, without giving too much away, is really about magic going by the wayside, and here comes technology.
Oh.
So now it's like, imagine like you're 8 years old and you want to show where like people have like, like grappling hooks in their suits, and they just like jump down things, and they fight pirates and ninjas and like giant Thanagarian snare beasts, and
So you're telling me, what if it's He-Man, but with a showrunner who is arguably the most famous Batman fan in the world?
Yes.
Grappling hooks, pirates.
Well, all of that stuff existed.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Like all that stuff was already there. That's what I mean. Like it's like this weird world where like there's magic, and He-Man was originally a Conan pitch. It was supposed to be, Mattel was supposed to make toys for Conan the Barbarian. They were like started making sketches and all that stuff. Then Conan with Schwarzenegger was rated R, and you can't make toys for a rated R film.
Got it.
For kids in the 80s. And so it got pivoted to it got pivoted to He-Man, which is why if you look at He-Man, which I've got a
yes, he does look like Conan the Barbarian.
He looks like Conan the Barbarian, or he looks like a Frank Frazetta painting, or like like he's got his little fur in the boots.
So they 50 Shades of Grey'd it, where it started out as a Twilight fanfic and then turned into its own thing.
Kinda.
This started out as Conan the Barbarian toys and then became its own thing.
And it became its own thing. But because it became its own thing, instead of just staying in the fantasy world, they're like spaceships, grappling hooks, jet packs, guns, laser beams, swords, like trackers, whatever.
Sky's the limit. In fact, sky's not even the limit. We're going to space. Exactly.
And which they did in a He-Man Goes to Space show, apparently, which was not very well received. But it's all of those things combined. So kind of like, so it's almost like, it felt almost like Star Wars that way.
Okay.
Where it's like, oh, like you like the mystical magic stuff, that's here for you. Also, if you love cool technology and machines and like laser grids and all that stuff, and like a group that there's a group that's like worshiping technology for something, and they were like, from now until we diode, it's so like if you like stuff, like it's there for you. It's like whatever your little 8-year-old heart can desire, He-Man provides. And that's what I found so charming about it. And even the show, which again, I didn't know anything about, like what I told you about He-Man in the first 30 seconds. This is the planet Eternia, this side, whatever. But what I actually found most intriguing about the show, one, the animation is spectacular. It's beautiful to look at. The cast, man, is amazing. You know Chris Wood, right?
I do. Mon-El from Supergirl.
Exactly.
And Melissa Benoist's husband in real life.
That's right. He's He-Man.
Nice.
He does a great job.
Oh, of course. And Kevin Smith loves him.
Yes. Yeah, they do. Mark Hamill.
Yes, I did know he was
relatively famous.
I did know he was in this. Yes.
Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Oh,
she's in this. Arguably, she's the lead, in which there's part of the controversy of the show. Yeah, and so that's
who is she?
She plays this woman named Tila, who is like the captain of the guard, type character. And so basically, she didn't know. Like a little spoiler, she didn't know that Prince Adam, who is her best friend, was also He-Man. He never told her one of those stitches.
Sure.
And so she finds out, and that doesn't go over very well. So she kind of strikes out on her own. And so,
Clark, if you can't be honest with me, yeah.
So a lot of the first season so far, these first 5 episodes, is kind of like getting the band back together.
Sure. Okay.
So therefore, you're like introduced to people all over again, which is pretty cool. And then Sarah Michelle Gellar, she's great. Liam Cunningham, I don't think but he was on Game of Thrones. He's very good. Kevin Conroy, you know him.
Sure do.
He's great. Plays a villain this time. It's good stuff. Still sounds like Batman, though. It's a little, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I was going to say that must be a little strange.
It's a little odd. Tiffany Smith from remember the DC After Show stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I like her.
Yep. She's a lead in here, too. Jason Mewes is in it, of course.
Of course he is. Is Harley Quinn Smith in this?
Yeah, she is, but she's just like grunts and stuff in one character.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not very large. But you like a good show about having fun, right? Reminding you what it's like to have an imagination as a kid.
Yes.
And that's what I really found. That's what I really found so delightful about this. But what I really like, which I know you like, the good guys are good, the bad guys are bad. It's like one of those, like, I'm going to sacrifice myself because that's the right thing to do.
Sure.
And everyone's like, right on.
Nice.
That's the right thing to do. It's not like I have to kill 7,000 people.
And
also sacrifice myself. It's not in them like that. Oh, Lena Headey is in this. I know you're not in Game of Thrones, but Terminator. Yep, yeah. She's in here too. So the cast is really strong. They filmed most of it, or they recorded most of it during COVID. So like, it's always fun to be like, you definitely weren't in the same room.
Right.
There's Sarah Michelle Gellar did an interview afterwards where she was like, she had her husband set up a recording studio for her in the house so she could record. And so she said that, like, she's like, okay, mom's going to be upstairs recording, doing this thing. And she got so into it. Her kids ran upstairs at one point to see if she was okay.
I love that.
Yeah. It's really fun. But, I feel like I'm not selling it the way that I want to sell it to you. Like I'm missing something and I can't figure out what it is. So what are your impressions so far?
Well, my impression is, so I guess my impression / leads me to a question. I love that you called out the way that it, the heroes are good, the villains are bad. The people do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, not because like they have no choice or whatever. Like it's the villains are good because they're good, not because they're shades of gray and do the right thing or because it happens to be convenient or whatever. I like that. I definitely like that, especially out of a cartoon. So does it feel like an 80s Saturday morning cartoon? Like, is it rated G, first of all? Like, is it something that you could show to kids, or is it more for the adult fan of that franchise, knowing that it sounds like Kevin Smith made it so that if you're a first time watcher, you get caught up to speed pretty quickly. But is it more for the adult sort of comic book fan? You know, like a lot of things are like for the grown up comic book fan, like the DC movies are and the Marvel movies are for the grown up comic book fans, or is it just as good for kids as it would be for the grown up fan?
Second season Justice League Unlimited.
Wow, that is so specific, and I love that about you. Okay, so all right, I'm on board. All right,
yeah, okay.
All right, I'm following.
It's the show is designed to like be within the same world, obviously the same continuity as the original show, so it doesn't feel so cheap and corny that you're like, this is meant for 6-year-olds and my brain can't take it.
Sure,
like it's more meant for you, like maybe like you're 10, 11, 12, 13, but it actually can be fairly violent. Like He-Man famously in the show, I guess, never used his sword for anything that swords are used for ever. Like, and so when you like in this one, they actually do stab people, gotcha. Or they do like that. So there's like the threat level is higher. So there is, so part of the, do you care about spoilers at all? Ish?
No, I'm fine with spoilers. I would just caution anyone who's listening who may want to not be spoiled to tread lightly here.
Yeah. So part of the, I'll give the just the first episode kind of overview if you've been following along on the internet at all. But part of the people are complaining about the show, I would say a small but vocal group is complaining that He-Man dies in the first episode, and he's not in the other episodes except for in memory and flashbacks and stuff.
So that's why it's called Masters of the Universe
and not He-Man and Masters of the Universe. That's correct. It's it takes He-Man out of the equation to build up the ensemble.
I see.
So they become elevated and supported. So when He-Man makes his eventual return, because Netflix and Mattel ain't stupid, they're not ditching their main character. It's Death and Return of Superman.
Right.
That's like, like you take your main player off the board, you build up your other players, so then when the main player comes back, you have an affinity for all of the characters instead of just the original one.
Sure. Okay. See, that's really cool, and I like that. That's selling me on it, honestly. Like,
that's what sold me. That's part of what. Yeah. Because like you don't really need to sell me on He-Man as the character.
Sure.
Because that's not what I was really interested in before anyway. If it was, I would have tagged on to He-Man a long time ago. And so, but it's really smart writing. And that's what I found myself invested in. Characters have a purpose. There are stakes to what they're working through. And I'm interested to see where it's going next. And I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything, like that I didn't have to see a single episode of the 80s show to make a connection. And I'm almost glad that I haven't seen it, because I I can make my own assumptions about anything that I've seen in this, moving forward. And that never happens for us as geeks, right? They make a Superman movie, something Batman, Power Rangers, like whatever. Like we're far past the time to which be like, this is my first.
Yes. It's almost assumed. It's pretty much assumed that you have seen some version of this before. And it's not necessarily made entirely for a first-time viewer, usually.
Right. And this, I didn't feel like I said, I didn't feel lost at all. Like I considered myself a first-time viewer because my experience was, I didn't even know what He-Man stood for. Like, never mind. Like he's a man and his pronoun is he.
Sure.
It's good. It's good. I didn't apparently it's short for hero. So he's Hero Man. Because I learned that by watching the documentary about the toys.
That sounds like a Mattel type thing. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. That's like the line, the original theme they were going with. So they're like a lot of the toys, they're like Beast Man, He-Man, Man of Arms, all this, like they're all man based.
It can't be Conan anymore. So what are we going to call him? Well, he's a hero and he's a man. What if he was Hero Man? That's great, Bill. We're going to hold on to that. We're going to put a pin in that one. And
actually, we'll come back to it. In row, and then you put that pin right over.
Roman, because he's a Roman.
Yeah, Roman. Oh, good. That's the next step they haven't done yet.
Bill, take a lap. You can, just take the rest of the day off. You're fine.
Oh, goodness. So, but anyway, that's that. But I found, like all Kevin Smith things, it was so earnest and so full of heart that I was like, it's just, I found it very infectious right from the start, because it's also like, it's got that slight kid humor a bit. So like Prince Adam has a pet tiger that talks, that's played by Stephen Root. Actually, Stephen Root.
I know Stephen Root from Office Space.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Stephen Root plays the tiger.
So it really is like Shazam.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. Yeah, I'm really not kidding. So,
down to the talking tiger. Okay.
Down to the talking tiger. And so like fireworks are going off and they're like, oh, fireworks. So like, nobody's afraid of fireworks. And the tiger's like crouched under a table because animals don't like fireworks. Yeah. And it's like, some of it's like real on the nose humor, but it was so endearing because of that. But then like the animation and the action sequences and a lot of the design really makes up for everything. There's a scene or a part of the second episode where characters have to go to Castle Grayskull, so there's a memory of like what it's like, and it's all very Conan the Barbarian, this and blah blah blah. But now it's all laser gates and high sealed doors, and they're like, this is not what it was when I was here last time. So I just like that idea of technology encroaching on fantasy, and like almost like the shift between fantasy and science fiction and where people's interests lay and what caused that and stuff like that. And the show really, it talks about it or it is about it enough without, it being for adults. It's a brisk 30 minutes every time.
I like that. Yeah. And so it sounds like they dropped 5 episodes, each a half hour. So we're talking about 2.5 hours of content. And it sounds like they're doing these drops of a handful of episodes at a time, once or twice a year. So it's, I don't know if they're calling it season 1 or what they're calling it, but it sounds like it's almost, they're dropping half seasons in chunks. I think it's
season 1, part 1 is what they call it. Because I know they just finished scoring the last episode of the end of part 2. So that comes out sometime apparently in 2022.
That's cool. That's cool. How is the score, by the way? Because in my full disclosure,
magic.
Yeah, okay. Because in my putting together the show notes here, I've been adding links to the show notes, like links to watch the show on Netflix and watch the toys that made us on Netflix, things like that. And as in my doing that, I happened to see that Bear McCreary did the score, and I am a big Bear McCreary fan.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He did the score for Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles, featuring Lena Headey. And I know he also famously did the score for Battlestar Galactica, which is a beloved score as well. So I'm a big fan of his work. I absolutely loved his Terminator score. I haven't listened to it in a bit, but that's one of those scores that's like a go-to like work music type of thing, like background music for when I work. So how is the score for this series?
It slaps like fire. It's so good. Like almost like it's got like a Muse quality to it.
Oh
like
yeah.
Like a rock symphony. But there's some like really haunting pieces, you know, like single soloists, like a whale and thing. Like it's I won't say all over the map, but it like touches upon a lot of different genres, but it all kind of like He-Man itself. It's like it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that,
sure.
whatever. And it just kind of, but it all flows together. And honestly, the score is one of the first things that I noticed when listening or watching the show. I was like, this is like better than most, almost like Shirley Walker in Batman the Animated Series.
Sure.
Like, this music is just really good on its own.
It's just like another level. Like, like it's on a whole other level of quality compared to like what you normally get from an animated show.
Right. And that's where I'm like a little sad that like the show's getting review bombed by angry, sad, alone fans.
Yeah.
You know, where they're just like, you ruined a thing that's my blah blah blah, you know, like that. Like the show's about a woman now, like that's, you know, blah blah blah, you know, like those types. I'm like, get over yourself.
Everybody who hated Rey in The Force Awakens comes out of the woodwork.
It's kind of in that same thing. Kevin Smith did an interview with Variety that is like classic Kevin Smith, like, F you, do you really think that Mattel would hire me to not make a show about their main character? Like, what the F is wrong with you? Like, and I'm like, yeah, that's the good stuff. Yeah, just say it like it is.
You know, I almost so you're definitely convincing me. I'm like 2.5 hours, like that's like, you know, the next time I'm on like a long I have a long commute into work, like I could knock that out in a day of commuting.
That's right.
So like on a bus or a train. So like you're kind of making me feel like, oh, I'll just download that to my iPad, and the next time I commute, I'll just watch that on the ride, and I'll be there. I almost want to watch it just so then I can read Kevin Smith's like reaction to the angry fanboys.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, that would be great. It's also not so complicated of a show that you like can't do something else while watching it, though.
Oh sure, okay.
You know, like I think you would miss out on some really quality animation.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, and so it is 2D animation, right? But I assume not done by hand. I assume it's done the modern way.
Nothing's done by hand anymore. It's all, you know. But I mean, we say that, but they still draw stuff out. Like it's just like you draw on a tablet instead of, you know, pieces of paper that flip. You know,
sure.
So that's gone by the wayside. It's a slight anime style, but kind of like anime, like some of the DC animated universe movies are a slight anime style. Like it's not like, I don't know, like a Pokemon animation where, you know, it's just lots of streams of light and things
not
like that,
straight up literal anime, but anime inspired. But it's like really beautiful cell shading, you know, like good lighting and character, like some that stuff is that is what is impressive. Nice
to me.
Nice.
Everybody just looks, the whole design is really nice, and you don't really have to know anybody's name, which I also, you know what I mean. It's one of those, like, you know, like a character's name is Evil Lynn. You know, like, you know what you're getting into, kind of in its own way, but they also make fun of it. They're like, she's like, no, I added the evil. You know, like,
see, I love that because it's like, okay, obviously this was a cartoon originally developed to sell action figures, and so they were selling them to kids, and they were like, her name is Evil Lynn. His name is He-Man. Her name is She-Ra. Like they made it as simple as they could, because they're like, we're selling this to 7-year-olds. They need to be able to pronounce the name and remember the name, and it can be as dumb as it needs to be for them to remember it enough to ask their mom to buy it for them for Christmas.
That's right. And I really want the Triclops figure.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
You know, I got that.
So it starts that way, but obviously there's adults watching this now, and I love when they can turn that into, like, we can make fun of it in a loving way. It's from people who love it. Like Kevin Smith obviously loves the source material, and he's a great he's a good pick to do, you know, anything that he has an affinity for the source material for. Basically, he has a good talent for like absorbing a story, absorbing the characters, and understanding how to maybe tweak it, pivot it to tell a modern day version of a story that he grew up with. So I generally trust him with those sorts of things, and so I'm excited just on that basis. As somebody who enjoys Kevin Smith's work, I'm excited on that basis to check it out. And if it's only a couple hours, like and it has all the great talented people involved with it that you've mentioned, both in terms of voice cast and production and music and everything else, you have really hit me with your best shot, and I feel pretty persuaded. Do you have any final things you want to throw out there before we say goodbye?
It's fun to remind yourself. It's fun to remind yourself about like what it's like to be 9 years old again. To just to dive into a property that is really designed to just inspire your imagination and to play with some toys and everything it's like we take sometimes our adult properties that we loved as kids too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, The Dark Knight ain't inspiring anybody to play with some toys.
It's true.
Or even some of the something like The Last Jedi, or it goes against what George Lucas had originally said, whereas Star Wars is for kids.
That's right. That's right.
Talk about the trade disputes all you want. That wasn't really for kids, but it weirdly did become for kids because that was still all part of Star Wars and the Clone Wars and all that stuff. And guess what? Star Wars is still popular. Kids really liked it. Mm-hmm. I liked the trade dispute stuff. I didn't find it boring. Found it interesting.
Yeah. We were at the target age for the prequels and
that's
they
right.
landed with us.
And we liked that stuff, right? So it's people who were older who didn't like that stuff because it goes against what they thought the property should have been and stayed.
Yeah.
These self-proclaimed gatekeepers. And so for He-Man not having experience, it was just really fun to watch something and be like, man, this is dopey, but man, this is dope.
Nice.
That's kind of how I felt. That's kind of how I felt about it by the end. Like that character's name is Scareglow because he glows in the dark. And that's so dumb, but so fun at the same time because I know it was just to sell a toy, but he looks so cool. And played by Tony Todd. Who doesn't love Tony Todd?
Excellent.
So Tony Todd was on Smallville, wasn't he?
I think so.
Yeah, he was the guy that shook, right?
Tony Todd. Yes. He was his name was Dr. Hamilton, but he wasn't that Dr. Hamilton.
That's right. Because that Dr. Hamilton was also on the show
before
later. That episode. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, the Dr. Hamilton was in season 1. I know because I'm watching season 1 right now.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go.
Yeah. The little things.
The little things.
Yeah. Lex went to him and he was like, so rocks.
Right. Oh, wait a second. No, he wasn't Dr. Hamilton. Tony Todd wasn't.
Tony Todd was the janitor.
He was the janitor at
yeah.
Earl Jenkins.
That's it. Yeah.
Jenkins.
Earl. Yeah.
It was banging around there somewhere.
Good job though. That was good.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm working on this documentary right now. I don't know if you've heard about it. So there's a few Smallville things banging around my head right now.
I did hear about it. Yeah, it's good, but you're far past the point in the documentary where I am in watching the show.
Yes, that is correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Frank, this was fun. Tell us where people can find us.
You can find us at beerwithgeeks.com if you want to see the show notes for this episode and all of our episodes. You can find us in every podcast directory, from Overcast to Apple Podcasts to Spotify to Stitcher to TuneIn.com to Amazon and Google Podcasts and whatever. Every podcast directory, we are there, as is every show on the Thought Bubble Audio Network at thoughtbubbleaudio.com. You can find all of our shows there as well. You can also follow us on Twitter at Beer with Geeks. You can email us, beerwithgeeks@gmail.com. Those are great ways to support us by telling folks about the show. You can leave reviews in every podcast directory, especially Apple Podcasts makes the most impact in helping us to get the word out there. And if you want to go the extra mile beyond just ratings and reviews, you can sign up at patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio and pledge us your hard-earned cash, as little as $1 a month. That works out to about $0.25 per episode, and for that price, you will be sort of saying, this show is worth something to me, and I want to help you with the cost to do it. So, those are the ways that you can support us and help us keep making Beer with Geeks and all the other shows.
Nicely said, Frank. Nicely said. And always nice to chat with you with your ungeeky beer. So until next time, cheers. I need to hit you with my best shot.
Hit me with your best shot. Why don't you hit me with your best shot?
I hope you leave that really awkward line where you struggled with the machine for a bit.
I will not, but thank you for that.
Normally, I'm not all about pulling back the curtain all the time, but it was like you weren't expecting that. You forgot.
I forgot that I had a job to do.
Oh my gosh, that was so funny. The hand motions that went along with it. Like, oh no, my one job.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, no, Fred. I'm here to hit me with best shot. Masters of the Universe Revelation.